Anyway, folks, speaking of being void, apparently a business deal that was void, null and void, dead on arrival, wasn't going to happen. I hate to say I told you so, Brian. You know, I say that all the time when I say I told you so, that I hate to say this, but I told you so. Shane McMahon, the story now has been revealed apparently, where the deal, or not the deal, but the proposal that was made for him to become a part of AEW, and I think it was probably kind of what I thought. He said, well, I'll politely give this guy an offer that he absolutely can refuse, and he did. But is that, where did this information, where was it disseminated from? Do you have that?
I think you may be too kind. I think it's also maybe an example of Shane really wanting to do something in wrestling still and thinking this was a chance, not realizing nobody sees him as an executive who should be running a wrestling company, let alone Tony Khan, who sees himself as an executive who should be running a wrestling company. The story came from a few places. Obviously, originally, we heard a rumor that they met. We heard that Mercedes Moné ran into Shane at an airport. Then we saw a photo that was a bizarre photo because Shane was like leaning over the desk and Tony was acting, because it was clearly an act, like he was shocked that someone was taking a photo.
Yeah, like, oh my God, turn that camera off, put out that cigarette type of thing.
And then that got leaked. According to, I have a couple things here. I have the official Observer write-up, but Wrestle Talk put out something. A big new update has emerged regarding Shane McMahon potentially joining AEW after meeting Tony Khan last summer. As reported by Wrestle Talk and Fightful, in July 2024, Shane met with Tony Khan at an airport in Arlington, Texas. As reported by Sean Ross Sapp at the time, the meeting was regarding, quote, possibilities moving forward. However, despite plenty of speculation afterwards regarding McMahon working with AEW or potentially appearing on AEW TV, nothing would materialize in this regard. And let me stop there for a second. We didn't even bring up the rumor that he was going to be behind the Moxley thing.
Well,
that he was the mastermind of whatever gibberish Moxley says every week.
Well, and that was, on the face of it, was just ridiculous because they would have nothing to do. And Shane being a higher power was just fans wanting Shane to be a guy with money that was going to come in and try to, buy the company or run the company away from Tony or whatever. But then Moxley, because of those rumors, had to put that fire out by putting that line in. And I can't remember what his exact words were, but where I'm the boss, I work for me, or whatever the fuck, just to make sure that everybody knew the buck ended there. I think I made a pun. But here's what I think. I think that Shane liked the former Sasha Banks when they worked together and they met in an airport, and she told him about this wonderful guy she was working for, and boy, they ought to talk. And she said, okay. And if they wouldn't have met in an
because
airport,
I have nothing to do.
Well, no, he has plenty. Hey, he's got plenty to do, which with the money he's got is whatever fuck he wants to do, right? It's not like he's been flying. That's what I'm saying. It's not like he's been flying around the country trying to get a job in the wrestling business. They probably met in an airport because they were going to be ships passing in the night at a connecting city.
I agree with that, but I think I know plenty of unfulfilled millionaires. I know plenty of people that on the face of it, they are rich enough, they should be really happy, and they're miserable because they just, whatever it is,
Okay,
the work thing or whatever. With Shane, you could understand that because he really believed, as a lot of us did at a certain point, that he was going to eventually one day be the heir apparent.
Yes, and I agree with that. And
he thought he had a chance to buy UFC. He thought, I mean, all of these things.
Well, it disappointed him. It disappointed him that he wasn't, but that's his father's company. That's the WWF, the WWE. He's not tried to, he's made overtures with mixed martial arts. He's not tried to get in any kind of wrestling business. And they've been around for 5 years without him making any overtures, because you think Tony wouldn't have met with Shane beforehand, and obviously it's not like he's going to keep it a secret. He ran into Sasha, and Sasha said, okay. And I believe that Shane, after he talked to Tony and said is to himself, this is the guy that is running this company, said, I tell you what, you give me a piece of it and let me run it, and we'll talk business. Because he doesn't want a salary. He doesn't want to work for somebody in a wrestling company that comes off to most people in the wrestling business like Tony comes off. Now, whether they're at a place where they can admit it or want to admit it, or whether they're too naive to pick up on it, but for somebody that's been around the wrestling business for a long time, Tony does not come off like a General Patton that you would follow into battle to invade fucking Normandy, right?
Well, let me go back to this report here to some more details. Okay. Apparently, I won't name the show because based on the name of it, I'm guessing it's a show with Vince Russo. But Jonathan Coachman has a podcast now, and on it, he claimed that McMahon asked for equity in AEW during the meeting with Khan and allegedly wanted to come in and run the entire show, which apparently led to Khan ghosting Shane afterwards. While Fightful wouldn't verify Coachman's claims that McMahon wanted equity, several new details were learned via a source close to McMahon. The source told Fightful that Khan did not follow up with McMahon after the meeting, and while they couldn't confirm the claims that Shane wanted equity in AEW, it did seem like he wanted to run things. But he did not have much knowledge of AEW's product or business model, whatever that is. But he didn't have any knowledge.
I'm not sure there is anybody has knowledge of a business model. But no, again, and Heyman did the same thing with Dixie and TNA, remember? But this time it was specifically to run her off because he knows that he couldn't have done anything under those circumstances. But with Shane, he's not looking for a job. He's got all the money he wants. He sees this guy that has national television, a wrestling promotion, and he talks to him and he realizes, how the fuck did this happen by sheer happenstance and the striking of lightning? And he probably figured, you know what, when people are saying that by running it, or he wanted to run the whole show, like he wanted to do everything by himself. No, I bet you he didn't want to book, or he didn't want to do what he wanted to run the company, to be whatever they call the guy calling the shots in that corporate structure, the president or this whatever, because he could see that, Tony, I mean, do I have to fucking spell it out? And he wanted a piece of it rather than a salary, because that's an old Bill Watts technique that he used in WCW. Give me a piece of what I save you by cutting this budget where you're losing money. He's thinking, again, if I can make it go, then I'll make money on owning a piece of this thing.
Not to take anything away from the incompetence of Tony Khan, Shane's not a proven executive. Shane's not an executive with a history of turning things around. Like, there's no background for that. So even if you like him, I mean, there's no, the idea that he went in there as some seasoned businessman and it was...
Well, but hold on a second again. When the comparison is Tony Khan with the fucking, the wild hair and the crazy eyes and the hippity hop attitude, Shane looks good. He's dealt with network people and all these people for 30 fucking years or more than that. He knows people from all of the deals that they've made and done. He was into the thing with Tyson. He just contacts that he has, people that he could talk to, things that he would put more experienced and or learned people in a lot of these positions than Tony has, because he wouldn't give a fuck who his friends were. I mean, somebody's going to say, what's a rib? Pete Gas and Rodney got jobs. But yeah, as flunky fucking wrestlers, not as a goddamn head of marketing.
But if Shane just put people that he knew from WWE, that doesn't help AEW.
I'm not talking from WWE. I'm talking from everywhere. He knows all of the years that he spent in the office dealing with people from Hollywood to fucking New York to business people to sponsorships to the fucking people with the Skittles, whatever. He's worked and dealt in a bigger company with a better infrastructure, with more contacts for major league sponsors and the whole 9 yards. I'm talking business. I don't think anybody, whether you like Shane or not, or whether he wanted to do too many leapfrogs and his punches were the shits, he looks and acts and comes off as a more stable, adult, experienced businessman than Tony Khan does when he's in a suit and in that environment and not being
right. But that doesn't mean he's a good
on TV.
But that doesn't mean he's a good businessman. That's my point. He comes across better than Tony Khan. My kids come across better than Tony Khan
either. That's why I don't know why you're arguing with me. I'm not saying he's John D. Rockefeller. I'm saying he'd be a grade up in terms of an administrative boss of a wrestling company. Tony Khan.
That's the point. I'm not willing to submit. I'm not willing to submit to that because there's no evidence of that from anything. Tony Khan and Shane are very similar in a lot of ways, and obviously they're very, very fucking different in a whole lot of ways, but there's no evidence of Shane outside of his dad's grip ever being able to develop anything, do anything, come up with ideas. Let me read you real quick. I didn't even finish this report, and then I got to read you what Dave wrote about this.
Oh, boy.
Hold on. While Fightful didn't confirm Coachman's claims, they had a source close to Shane McMahon. Despite Khan not following up with McMahon after the meeting, Shane didn't seem to take it personally, and it reportedly seemed as if Khan thought that Shane was joking when mentioning the possibility of running everything in AEW. That's funny, too, the idea of
okay, and again, to my point, Shane didn't hear from him, and it's not like he was waiting by the phone. He did, it's like... I'm just
According to the source, McMahon viewed his insight and abilities to run a show as valuable. After years of witnessing fans and people in the industry want someone to replace his father in his role in charge of WWE. See, right there is very interesting. His insight and abilities to run the show were valuable. The report notes that there was never an actual plan for Shane McMahon to appear on AEW TV or be involved in the company, with sources within AEW telling Fightful that Khan hasn't spoken about it extensively outside of acknowledging that the meeting took place and the two sides aren't working together. Despite that, the source close to McMahon didn't rule out a potential cameo appearance at AEW.
Oh, come on.
But didn't think that there would be any full business relationship between them at the time. And that's the story there. Here's how it was reported in The Observer. Jonathan Coachman on his podcast claimed that Shane McMahon, in his talks with Tony Khan, asked for an equity stake in the company and wanted to run it, and that afterwards Khan never called him back. Khan hasn't commented on the report. I mean, seriously, Khan is never going to just give a significant equity stake to somebody, nor is he going to let somebody else run the company. It's the same situation when the first time Shane left WWE, that he met with UFC. And I told people there's no way a deal will be made because
I knew Dave would come into this somehow.
Because Shane will never accept a salary position, and then the idea of them giving him ownership, just giving it, that was never going to happen. He's not going to come in and work for a salary, and I'm not even sure what role he would do. In WWF, people rolled their eyes at the idea of him doing creative there, and he doesn't know the talent nor the landscape of AEW and has never run creative or been a key part of it anywhere.
Well, see, he's harping too on the creative. It's more than the creative. It's the running of the actual company, putting responsible, experienced, non-wrestling people in the places where non-wrestling people are the best for those places, marketing and advertising and live event, etc. And then you try to teach them and direct them the genre, but accounting, maybe some responsible accountants to say, how much goddamn more money are you going to spend?
We heard about
But
this, and then the next time we saw Shane was at the Super Bowl with his dad and The Undertaker.
I'm just saying, this sounds like a guy
You think it was recon? You think it was a recon mission?
No, I think this was a guy who met with a guy in the business he used to be in, the family business, because of a friend that he met. And he said, well, if this guy's really serious, I'm not going to take time out of my day unless it's worth it to me. And I bet you Shane did think that he could run the company better than Tony. And I bet if you put the two of them in a room, that ought to be a reality show.
No.
Put Shane McMahon and Tony Khan in a room and interview them to see which one comes off as a person to run anything if you would not know any specifics about anything.
I completely agree, and I bet Shane's mind was blown by the spectacle of Tony Khan. And considering that he grew up Vince's son, how do you think he reacted when everything he said, Tony Khan was sitting there nodding at him? Right? Because Vince hated that, and that's all Tony does. He nods at everything you say.
And just the hyperactivity and the overconfidence would be a word. The overexuberance. I'm not violating the NDA when I just described the tone of a man's conversation as being, again, convinced everything's great. Nothing can fail. And because I guess if it doesn't matter, he's used to, it doesn't matter if something fails because you can't give as much money away as they have. So he's never really had a failure in his life because what does it matter if something doesn't work, do something else. It's not like, we're not going to eat or anything. But I think that's the thing is that Shane would have figured, all right, if this guy really wants me to do something here, I'll pitch this. And if he politely declines, then I'll go about my day type of thing.
I think Shane's going to do something with his dad. That's what I think. His dad who can't turn to Stephanie anymore.
Well, and from what we have been led to believe, that's not going to be wrestling. So I don't know that I would argue with you there.
Dabocado.
Shane might still do something with
Raw Underground or Raw After Dark. What was it? Raw in the Dark. What was it? It was. Was it Underground? It was Underground, right?
Raw with writers in the dark. It was Raw Underground, and it should be buried about 6 feet. But anyway, so that's and we caught up with that's all going on in the WWE right now. We're going to start watching the TV again leading up to the Elimination Chamber. So more on that to come. Well, I guess
that's what Shane McMahon said when he left the meeting. More on that
to come.